Hi, Tiara. Thank you for being our staff today, our technology people.
I'm excited to be here and just grabbed a box of tissues. So
Great.
thank you for the warning.
I kind of wish I could see like who is here.
If you want to see everyone, you can click on participants and then attendees, and you'll be able to see a list of everyone who's
Oh, okay. That's what I wanted to see.
awesome. And then again, at the end, we'll promote everyone to panelists so they can turn on their video real quick, say kind words, and then we kick them all out so you can talk to your panel.
Great. Yeah, there's a couple people that need to be here and aren't part of the school that didn't know if they could get into the Zoom. So.
Awesome. And if you need any links sent to you, please just let me know. I can send you meeting ID, password, all that good stuff.
Cool.
All right. I'm back. Doug got me squared away. All right. Here we are. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I was just trying to find a spot that have good internet connection, and here I am. All right. Welcome. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming to the thesis of Ryan Zweber. And my name is Crystal Shank, and I'd like to introduce our other panelists, Kristen Bradshaw and V. Maldonado, who I'm so happy to have here today. It's been a great pleasure working with Ryan over this past semester, and I'm very, very proud of their work and of them as a person. So as we were talking about before, bring your tissues. This is a very, very heartfelt thesis, and with that, I wanted to go ahead and turn it over to, well, actually, before I do that, let me walk you through the process a tiny bit. I know we're familiar with it by now, but Ryan's going to talk for about 30 minutes about their work, and this is a wonderful time for us to learn about their thoughts and process and the content. I'm then going to open up questioning just to the panel. And the panelists, this is our chance, not as a critique, but to learn more in depth about some of the things that we're curious about. And then I'll open it up to the rest of the audience for questions. After that's done, we bring in everybody. We can express our happiness and appreciation that you've gone through this process. And then I kick everybody out, and then we'll talk one-on-one, Ryan. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ryan. And I'll go ahead and mute myself.
Can you, let's see, I need to go back here real quick. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It's going to be a lot. So I'm Ryan Zweber, and welcome to my thesis, or as it's better known, my shit show, or the official title of the program. It's really fair to say that I've struggled a lot with figuring out how to talk about this, not just in relation to my work, but my topic in general. How to casually address to people that I don't know, or even people that I do know, my life's complex trauma. How to expose my deepest fears, to tell you in a way that you will understand and care about what's happened to me. Before I begin, I'd like to reiterate the content disclosure on the door, since you are all joining us remotely today. In this exhibit and the story of it, I explore my deepest traumas. I cannot presume how this may stimulate your body's response in relationship to your traumas, but I can definitely be sure that whatever you feel today is valid. We're approaching conversation about every imaginable form of abuse against children under the hands of the troubled teen industry. Please take care of your needs before considering my needs. What I need from you now is to listen, to acknowledge my truth. Please know that I am coming to you from a place of anger, hurt, and weakness, just as much as I was coming to you from a place of love, embrace of myself, and strength. I need you to not allow this information to change who I am to you, but give you an understanding of what I bring with me. Nothing scares me more than how I've become. Not who I've become, but how I got here. In January of 2014, I was kidnapped. I was 16, stolen from the living room of my childhood home by 3 people posed as police officers and their large dog. They took my shoes, my bag, my phone, everything. They smuggled me into the very back seat of a dark blue Subaru SUV and across 4 state lines. After making many disorienting U-turns, they dropped me off at this cabin in the woods to stay, just for one night, and they'd be back in the morning. This place I would come to know as the program, a legal, for-profit child trafficking and enslavement business, under the farce of therapeutic behavior modification and lacking regulation under the guise of religious practice. When the transporters, or my kidnappers, brought me inside, I was introduced to someone that they called my big sister, and taken to a room, a bunk room, full of other children. At promptly 6 a.m. the next morning, I was physically dragged out of that bunk. They made me take off my clothes, shower, and have my body inspected by a staff member. Over the next few weeks, I was ordered to sign my rights away, force-fed foods against my dietary restrictions, denied any and all contact with the outside world, including my family. They ripped out my belly ring, not took out, but ripped out. So scared of where I was, I hoped my kidnappers would come back for me like they said. I used to write letters to someone back home every single day for the first 6 months. I tried to send them from church, the library, on long silent marches past the post office. I had 2 bulging full manila envelopes. Then I realized no one was coming for me. No one was looking for me. Around 10 months into my kidnapping, I was convinced it was my fault. And I spent a lot of time fantasizing death. Within a few years, I had fully denounced all people other than my abusers. I wrote in my mandatory journal on day 350, titled Friends Are Fiction. The only relationships I will have are with trained professionals in the art of fucked up kids. The only ones who have been required to know me, the only friend I've ever had, and the creator of all shit that is. It was then that I was put on Black Cloud, where the program confined me in isolation for nearly 2 months. It was there that I created new personas in my journals. Each had their own handwriting, some reoccurring. I didn't want the real me to be me right then. Black Cloud is the time that I have chosen to focus on depicting for my thesis show, recreating the space where I spent months in solitary confinement inside the already isolating experience of program. This is my testimony of my kidnapping, enslavement, and brainwashing in a cult-based boarding school as a child. The abuse was so normal to me, I began believing and enforcing the program's beliefs. So there are some things that I need you to know about the program in order to understand my work. Black Cloud is the fullest form of isolation. You have no contact or interaction, left in a small corridor, often unfed, in a hallway, a tent, a locked room, and you must be on silence at all times. Being on silence is being forced to be completely silent for extended periods of time, including sounds of coughing and crying. From this comes the Breaking Code Silence movement, you may have seen on Instagram or in Paris Hilton's movie. The program is a hidden institution and its belongings, for profit, mostly unregistered. In the program, we do what are called processes. Processes are daily cult exercises framed as therapy to further the program's agenda. They're often in groups, violent, and intentionally demeaning, using many verified tactics of brainwashing and mind control. The program runs off of a level system. Level 1 is resistant to the program. Level 2, open to the program. Level 3, showing initial change. And level 4, internalize the program's agenda. Status in the program is based on levels. Levels dictate everything from what you wear, when and what you eat, when you can go to bed, and even when you can use the bathroom. And the vote-up process is excruciating and cruel. Whiteboard is active refusal. You can get on whiteboard by having 4 or more write-ups in a week, dropping a level, cheating, etc. Being on whiteboard automatically adds another write-up for the week and further punishment based on the incident. So for example, if you're caught planning to run, you'll be put on a leash and tied to someone else. A write-up is a punishment consisting of 10 hills in 2 hours, 2 manual labor hours each. Write-ups can be for anything from having a fallen sock under your bed or letting someone borrow your shampoo to getting into a fight, literally anything. Hills are done at the gravel pit. The physical distance of each hill is about 1/4 a mile, but it's loose gravel, so with each step up the mountain, you slide back at least half. 10 hills must be completed in under an hour, or the remainder will double. And keep in mind that most weeks, you would have more than 1 write-up. The most I ever recall running in one day was 36 hills. So how is this still running? As I mentioned briefly, upon arriving at the program, all human rights were stripped away. I'm often asked why I wouldn't just tell my parents or run away. But you see, I was so heavily censored. All mail was screened. And if I tried to expose the mistreatment, the letter just wouldn't be sent, or I'd be harassed into rewriting a productive email. This often came with claiming religion or being forced to take accountability, the blame, for the trauma inflicted on us kids at the hands of program staff. By the time you are allowed to contact your parents, still censored and monitored closely, the brainwashing has taken too far in effect to be confident in disclosing the abuse. I don't know how to communicate to you just how bad it was. I can tell you that while I was there, one girl jumped off the top bunk in hopes of breaking her arm and being taken to the hospital where she could tell the doctors of our mistreatment. Another girl induced a seizure in herself. One drank bleach, once again in hopes of medical treatment. Many ran away, or at least tried, but there are literal bounty hunters employed by the program to catch runaways. And if you make it far enough without being shot or eaten by a bear or a cougar, the punishments for running are severe, and not everyone survives. Aside from the physical and sexual abuse we endured at the hands of pedophiles and unlicensed therapists that I still cannot really bring myself to talk about, we endured so much mental abuse from the director. Once a week, the director would come force processes on us that we now know are derived from a 1970s cult called LifeSpring. LifeSpring was a private, for-profit, new age human potential organization that trained more than 400,000 people within its first few years. Various academic articles published in psychology journals characterized LifeSpring's training methods as deceptive and indirect techniques of persuasion and control, and featured allegations that LifeSpring was a cult that coerced members from leaving with attack therapy. The phrase, "there is no hope," is a fundamental principle of LifeSpring's persuasion. LifeSpring was sued many times for inflicting trauma on adults who had paid money to be willing participants in these processes. Yet these same processes are still being used on emotionally vulnerable children today. While LifeSpring has changed their name several times to avoid regulation, they were eventually shut down and no longer deliver trainings directly. However, 75 independent companies across 9 countries offer replicas or training employing many of the cult's methods and will even hire staff members from the original cult. Among these are Discovery, Synanon, and WASPs. Discovery uses written processes directly derived from LifeSpring. Synanon, initially a drug rehabilitation program, became an alternative community claiming to center on group truth-telling sessions. This became known as the Synanon game, an abusive berating of your self-limiting beliefs. Synanon officially disbanded in 1991 due to members being convicted of criminal activities, including murder. It lost its tax-free status with the International Revenue Service due to financial misdeeds, destruction of evidence, and terrorism. The Synanon Church has been academically called one of the most dangerous and violent cults America has ever seen. WASPs is where Discovery and Synanon still practice enforced processes. WASPs stand for Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs in School. It's an umbrella corporation of independent institutions associated with teen behavior modification programs, boot camps, wilderness survival, and therapeutic boarding school. The unregulation of WASPs opened the door to even more problematic revivals of the cult processes. There was a board of legislators appointed to regulate these programs. However, all the members on this board were actually owners of the programs, thus virtually no regulation. So when lawsuits were filed, they were immediately shut down and hidden. LifeSpring led to resource realizations. Resource realizations branched off to WASP. WASP parented several programs. Amongst these was Cross Creek. Cross Creek led to Spring Creek, the parent program of the one that I was in. Spring Creek was owned by known pedophile twins, the Pullens. Spring Creek's curriculum included a points and level system that punished noncompliance. Extreme noncompliant individuals, level 1 active refusers, were often kept in solitary confinement or transferred to a Mexican program known as High Impact, which later was closed by the Mexican government due to allegations of child abuse. At its peak enrollment, Spring Creek housed over 500 students and employed 200 individuals in various positions, making it the largest employer in the county at the time. Publicly, Spring Creek claimed to close due to an extreme drop in enrollment, several lawsuits, licensing issues, and oversight controversy. In actuality, it closed after several on-property child suicides. Spring Creek is the parent program of the program that I was enslaved to, Clearview Horizons, and it doesn't stop there. While Clearview is still running, they already have 2 sub-programs open today, Reflections and Old West Academy. So here my work begins, being on Black Cloud Isolation at Clearview Horizons, the program that stole me, sold me, betrayed me. A child at Clearview Horizons being abused and berated by Michelle Manning, Michael Linderman, Kimberly Sparks, and countless staff. Here is how I show you. In this exhibit, you see 2 full-size bodies, chainmail, a gravel pit, written daily accounts from inside the program, clothing and photos, and can hear audio. I pretty much stuck exactly with my proposal. My process of making begins with having my body 3D scanned. Both full-scale bodies are me, 3D scans of me, sliced, laser cut, and stacked. Each body contains about 300 pieces, nearly 600 pieces total, coincidentally similar to the amount of days that I was held captive in the program. I meticulously stack the pieces to transfer the energy of my traumas that I hold in my live body into each layer. The first body you see upon entering is laying down, depicting a teenage me in solitary isolation, confined to a hallway, nearly surrounded by locked doors. Some days I'd be tied to a bench there. Other days I just sat there, laid there. I became part of the floor. No one could or would look at me. The other full-scale figure is seen standing, walking, and performing laborious punishment. Originally, this was inspired by an image of me. This image where this day I had made a flower crown to feel some sort of normal, just in time to be abused for picking flowers. Here I am seen doing daily tasks. Level 1s take out the trash and get harassed in the process, but I refuse to take off my crown during my punishment. I'm dragging ceramic chainmail not only to show the weight of these punishments, but to show the comfort I had to build for myself as a child. Like a blanket, I wove hundreds of loops. Like shackles, I am tied to this experience, yet I craft something new out of dirt because I am an overcomer. The gravel pit is to show you the scale and intensity of the hills as punishment, but I truly could not accurately recreate this because of gravity. The gravel pit where we ran hills at had a literal caution signed sinkhole that I'm told can be seen from Google Earth. They used to make us fill potholes with that gravel too. Forced child labor in over 100-degree weather and below freezing weather. Us kids would shovel, wheelbarrow, and fill holes all day. Building this gravel pit was very triggering at first, loading all the gravel into a shopping cart like a wheelbarrow. At some point, moving the gravel became cathartic, knowing that I will always be more powerful than any punishment they could ever force on me. Depending on how much you read, the journals will give you insight on day-to-day life. I remember days as numbers, as pages I was forced to write, as green or gray. Here you may see why. I questioned whether or not to choose specific pages or allow the viewer to flip through. I worried that if you flipped to certain pages, you would think this place was great because the way the brainwashing played out. But I chose to allow you to flip through freely because I think it's important you know just how brainwashed I was, so much so that I began believing and endorsing my abuse. Some days I'm prophetic, some days I'm sad, some days I'm angry, some days I feel absolutely nothing, and all of those days are valid. As for the clothing you see, my uniform in grays, it's important to show just how small I was when this happened to me, how tiny my uniform is, because I was a child. A child. The audio playing aloud through my exhibit is a recorded conversation between myself and other program kids. We talk about the program, how badly we are affected, how we try to cope, our love for each other, our anger, our sadness, everything. It's important to recognize just how deeply and daily affected we are. I intended to share audio directly from core documentation and trials against the program. I considered sharing audio testimonies and show newspaper articles, but I decided that me and my story are enough, and that kind of violence and exposure was unnecessary. Much of my research is based in personal accounts, shared memories, and private files. I have gathered and analyzed my hoard of program memorabilia, daily accounts and thousands of journal pages, my uniform, mail, emails, photos, my coping box. I have analyzed court documents, lawsuits, legislative bills, and newspaper articles. But most importantly, I live it. I was physically locked in the program for 20 months, yet I'm still stuck there every day and night. I heard once that as artists, we are the creators of visual culture, and I took that personally. I create for awareness, to educate. I create for community and connection. I create for fun, to express. I create for what I cannot say with words. I create because I literally cannot not make. I made this body of work because it seemed more tangible than justice. It was far more tangible than a good night's rest. Ideally, this work would be easily accessible, perhaps in multiple cities with an online virtual tour option. There would be a takeaway with links to resources, safe places, free mental health care, mutual aid networks. I hope that eventually there will be more Google searches about restorative justice for the survivors and victims of the program than search results for open programs currently enrolling with pedophile unlicensed therapists. We need more preventative transparency of institutions, more genuine community care. The troubled teen industry needs to be exposed and destroyed. Creating about it, continuing this conversation is all I know to do. As defeating as it felt that many of you cannot physically come see my work as intended, I feel successful. Even the fact that I can talk about this now is a wild success. Getting through all of this and remaining sure of my boundaries is a success. After years of being put on silent and further hushed by guilt, shame, and other people, I refuse to be silenced ever again. This work will never be finished. But here I am, breaking code silence on the troubled teen industry by creating art as my testimony of my kidnapping, enslavement, and brainwashing in a cult-based boarding school to bring awareness and further the obliteration of the program through my loudest voice, my creations. Through making these sculptures, I grieve. Through sharing with you, I begin to radically accept that this is my truth, my reality, my trauma. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. You did it. You got through that. That was wonderful. You need to take a minute. So proud of you. So proud of you. So right now, it's you, it's V, it's Kristen and I, and thank you so much for sharing about your artwork. And this is just a chance for us to get to know a little bit more about it. And so I'm going to step back a little bit and let them start with questions if they have some.
Yeah, can I first just say thank you for making this work in such a thoughtful way. And I really can't imagine how difficult it is. I think we all make work from within ourselves, and that's responsive, and that many of us are interested in enlightening our fellow people. But I think this work is really charged in that way, and to underscore this, the thoughtfulness through which you have approached this topic, which I say topic, and I'm like, well, that actually feels really flat, because this isn't a topic for you. This is a lived experience, and I think